Hey everyone, Evan here. Welcome to episode 249 of the Sports Ballers podcast. With football right around the corner, we're going to spend today talking about the latest and greatest of Major League Baseball, or in the case of the Yankees, the latest and the worst. So we can spend next week focused on fantasy football and the following week on our NFL preview. Thanks for joining us, and let's get to it. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Evan Ash, joined as always by Corey Puffett and Eric Meyer. How are y'all doing today? Now that some of us have had dinner.
We're having dinner.
Still working on it, but
present tense.
I'm feeling pretty good. This burrito is outstanding.
My burrito bowl is
Corey's
pretty
bowl
outstanding.
looks great too. So got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
Hungry, man.
Now that I'm in cross country season, I gotta. I practice. It ends at like 6:15, so I gotta bust my ass back here and shower and get something to eat. So this is gonna be our show for the next several weeks.
Oh,
a couple months basically.
Well, let's just get into it. We will start in the NFL. The Ravens lost a preseason game for the first time since September 3rd, 2015.
How could they?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Now, who did they lose to? They lose to, like
the
Bills or
Manders. Yeah, down at FedEx. So.
What?
What's their excuse?
How'd y'all do that?
I already know how they did that. Washington's starters were playing against Baltimore's second string, and Washington's second string was playing against Baltimore's third string.
That's also true. Like all week we saw, or at least I saw on social media, that it seemed like the Manders were making this their Super Bowl, right?
While also downplaying and saying, yeah, this doesn't matter.
Well, that's because you can't actually say, yeah, this game really matters to us because you look like morons. But their actions spoke louder than their words, right? Like
Very
after
much.
the game, or like on the last play of the game, they're running around. Somebody compared him to Patrick Beverly running around, throwing his shirt into the crowd after the Timberwolves won a play-in game. But the thing is, the play-in game actually got them somewhere. It got them into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Winning this game does absolutely nothing for Washington.
No.
Can't explain it, but it's a loser franchise, and this is what you kind of expect.
Well, and while, yes, Washington may have won that game, they still had a little bit of a loss up in the press box during the game.
I thought you were going to talk about Terry McLaurin getting banged up,
there was that too. He hurt his toe, but I was talking about their owner up in the press box with Troy Aikman
It was great.
and Joe Buck.
I'm so glad this is on Monday Night Football just so we could have that moment, because everything else doesn't really matter, but...
For anybody who has missed it, do yourselves a favor and find the video. It is all over X/Twitter. You can find it anywhere, but essentially Joe Buck, he talks with his hands, and so as he's making a point, he's looking to his left, but his right hand just kind of like sits out away from his body to the right. And so Washington's owner stares at it, and for some reason thinks, oh, he wants a handshake. So he gives him one. And then on the other side of Washington's owner, I'm forgetting his name, Harris.
Josh Harris?
Josh Harris.
Yeah.
On the other side of Josh Harris, Troy Aikman, his eye just barely captures it, and you can see he wants so badly to just break out laughing, and he's got to control it, but he still has this smirk on his face.
Well, I love the smirk plus the the knowing eye contact he made with Buck after it happened. Like that just really happened, didn't it? Like this idiot thought you were offering him a handshake in the middle of calling the game
at all, looking completely the opposite direction.
Yeah, and just again in the middle of the game, like he's clearly talking about something. He's not like, hey, how you doing? Handshake. He's talking about something related to the football game or the team's playing, and Josh Harris seemed like he was a little overserved, like he was feeling himself a little bit, which,
He's the owner. Good for him.
sure, yeah.
He signs the checks.
If that's
He
the
can't get
worst
fired.
thing that the new guy does
Yeah,
in town
exactly.
is he's drunk during a preseason game and doing an interview with Buck and Aikman, then I guess that is a massive step up from where we were. But
With the FBI, DEA, IRS, and Congress investigating.
So that was it.
probably some other
Any
people.
more letters you want to
Probably
add?
a lot of private investigators too. We just don't know about them.
Oh, okay.
All right, Evan, how you feeling though? You were kind of feeling yourself at coasting by the ocean about your Ravens beating the Eagles by a point. You're about to talk all this smack to these South Jersey / Philly folks, and
really.
now it's over.
Yeah, I'm just a little salty, I guess.
Salty.
I don't
Salty.
like losing, but, whatever.
Doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. I still want to win, right? If they're keeping score, I want to win. But, we just move on, right? Like it's fine.
That's probably the best.
And it didn't occur to me.
It's not like either of us are Commanders fans right now, so it's
Yes,
not like we
y'all
want to
quit
talk
on them.
about this game.
Not really.
On this
No,
podcast.
I didn't even watch it. Like I had to get the Buck and Aikman magic from Twitter and
Same
you
here.
guys. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I really appreciated it. That was awesome.
yeah. So, we'll move on. I didn't recognize that Washington played their starters and the Ravens didn't. Because, Sam Howell was just balling out and stuff.
Well, and everything I've
he would
seen
get
is
sacked and then
everything
just
I've heard
chuck
and
it
seen
for...
is that Sam Howell has looked quite good over the first 2 preseason games. But it's preseason. I take that with a grain of salt, and especially the Ravens game playing against their backups. I'm not going to read too much into that. I'm interested to see what Washington does in the 3rd preseason game. It seems like there's a lot of different strategies around the NFL. If you watched Hard Knocks, we'll talk a little bit more about Hard Knocks later, or at least I will. But if you watched yesterday's episode, Robert Saleh revealed that the starters are all going to get some playing time during the 3rd preseason game. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to take that same approach where they're going to treat the 3rd preseason game kind of the same way that the 3rd game has traditionally been played, which is as a dress rehearsal for the regular season. But I think a lot of other teams are trying to utilize every game that they can to get their eyes on their rookies and on their depth pieces, since we don't have a 4th game, which has traditionally been that game. They're taking advantage of the fact that we have expanded rosters all the way through the preseason as opposed to incremental cut days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems kind of, I don't want to say pointless to even have cut the preseason down by a week if they still use week 3 as the dress rehearsal, because, they didn't play at all in week 4 anyway. But I guess there's still some level of protection for the down roster players. They have to make those decisions based off of, one less game, which, is fine. We've talked about it before. The preseason as a whole really isn't a necessary exercise. They can... No. They have inter-squad scrimmages. They have joint practices. We know that they absolutely could cut their roster down purely based off of what they see in training camp, and that the preseason is just an excuse to have a game, put it on TV, and make a lot of money. So, in terms of the actual value added to your football team, it's negligible at best to have preseason games, but, we have them. So
terrible at worst, right? People getting injured and out for the year in a game that doesn't count.
That's true, but people can also get hurt in practice too. We've seen plenty of that. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of injuries, Miles Sanders with a knee issue says he will absolutely be ready for week 1.
All in for week 1.
Okay.
RG3 was back in the day.
Yikes.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there. As I mentioned last week, Panthers' offensive line just looks like absolute garbage so far this preseason. So, if I was Miles Sanders with a bad knee, I don't think I'd be in a rush to get in the game behind that offensive line. I think if you're not at 100%, anything that is even mildly inhibited is just going to be exacerbated by...
Exacerbated,
thank you.
Kornheiser was making fun of Joe Theismann for that when we were in the building
Right.
for the podcast, for the Tony Kornheiser show. He was hating on Trump for not knowing how to say anonymous, and also Joe Theismann, who kept saying exasperated when he meant exacerbated. Get the words right, so.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Theismann also had Danny Woodcock.
That was
was
excellent.
glorious.
That was an all-time clip. You know.
Yeah, I mean, if I was playing for Colorado football, that's what I would ask Coach Prime. What happened with the Danny Woodcock out of the backfield? Right? Can you take us through that? I wouldn't ask him about, am I going to start or not? Or, do I get a scholarship? What happened with the Danny Woodcock out of the backfield?
I'd ask him where that hair that he sprouted randomly came from, too.
Oh, he had the surgery or whatever.
So he got plugged up?
Yeah.
Didn't lose his voice like Buck?
No.
Okay.
He was, when he was on like Thursday Night Football or something.
Yeah, like in the studio.
He was like,
yeah.
It's so great to have so much money because now I have hair again.
Is that a thing? Like when you get plugs, you like lose your voice?
Buck got really sick as like a side effect from when
Really?
he had
It was a side effect of the local anesthetic that his vocal cord was
not
paralyzed.
of the hair, but of what they had to do.
Yeah, it had to do with
Okay.
the process, but
Got
it
it.
wasn't necessarily because he got hair
Okay.
plugs. It was
I was
because
like, that sounds like a really weird side effect.
Yeah,
it would be quite strange.
yeah. Well, it was right. He wasn't sick. He was just only had one functional vocal cord for a year or so. I totally lost track. Joe Burrow looks great according to Zach Taylor. Yeah, he's not going to miss any time, like I expected.
Yeah, I mean, a big name, somebody that we've been following ever since he hurt his calf a few weeks ago. But based on this, it sounds like he's definitely gonna be good for week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's good news because Joe Burrow's great. So
Yes.
Except for when he throws a game-starting interception for a touchdown. to
season
start the
ending for me.
on the first
On the
play
first
of the
play?
season,
Over.
it's season over.
Yeah, because I had Burrow as my starting quarterback, and I was playing Will Massimini, who had the Steelers' defense.
Ooh.
So, first play of the game, I'm already down like 14 points. And I'm just like, well, that's it for me. Time to tank.
like we're done.
Red Zone's been on for 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, we're done. I'll see you next year.
Yeah. 7 more hours of commercial-free football.
And I watched in agony,
And
hoping
17
my team
more
would get
weeks
back in
after
it.
that.
Burrow threw like 4 more picks, or he had 3 more
He had
picks
3
and
more
a
picks.
fumble.
Yeah, and a fumble.
Yeah, and I was just like, dude, can you
Brutal.
stop? Like
Brutal.
I'm actually kind of getting back in the game. Burrow threw another pick, another 4-point swing. I'm just like, I'm gonna jump off a bridge. So
I mean, this is how Joe Flacco looked up in Cincinnati one time. He threw 5 interceptions. My goodness gracious, 5.
not very good.
No. Someone who is very good, Cooper Kupp, is back in practice
boy.
on Monday. Yes, indeed. Dolphins cornerback Tino Ellis, a DeMatha alum. First I've heard of him, but
So clearly you did not watch the interview that I did with him during COVID.
no.
He was one of 3 DeMatha alums 4 DeMatha alums who were going into the NFL draft. 3 of whom we did interviews with. We weren't able to get Chase Young that year, but
He's also a Terp.
he's also a Terp.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Tino Ellis, really nice guy, really nice kid. Really enjoyed
It was a great
that
follow on
conversation
Twitter
that we had,
Yeah.
and yes, he is.
When
a
he
good
was
follow
on, especially when he
Twitter.
was at DeMatha, he was talking all kinds of smack to St. John's.
Oh,
It was
I didn't
awesome.
I didn't follow him when he was at DeMatha, but I followed him since then. He's a pretty good follow on
Was
Twitter.
at DeMatha. We're at DeMatha right now.
We are.
So
Not as students. We're
When-
old.
That's what I'm
Here.
referring to. Is when
yeah.
he was.
Well, I know.
Attending school. Yeah.
But we're at DeMatha right now. So
Okay.
optimism that Jalen Waddle, with his abdomen, will be ready to play week 1. There's optimism. So, is this John Harbaugh speak, or is this what the truth is?
Yes, one of the two. I don't know which. Waddle left practice last week, I believe, with, and nobody really knew exactly what was going on. And so since then, we found out it's an abdominal thing. But hopefully it'll be good week 1 because obviously he's a really important piece in their offense.
Well, hopefully he's less injured than Tua's pride after RC called him fat, and Tua got a little
What?
a little pissy about
Quentin
it.
Williams got mad when Mike Evans called him fat. That came up last night on the. But here's the thing: Quentin Williams is a defensive lineman. Like,
You can't be a
dude,
defensive
I'm sorry,
tackle and
you're-
get offended.
You're kind of fat. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're in
Unless
football
you're Aaron
shape,
Donald.
but you're a heavy dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, right?
You can't take that to heart.
Like when
It
Casey
was weird
Hampton,
that that Mike Evans is making the comment, but still.
Yeah, Ryan Clark was razzing Tua a little bit, saying he wasn't following the nutritionist's advice this offseason. He got a little doughy, and Tua legitimately was, us. He was like said something about us Samoans. We're nice guys, but we don't take kindly to stuff like that. Like he's ready to square up with Ryan Clark. I'm like, I'm sorry, Tua.
You're not.
I'm taking RC.
Yeah.
RC just has to hit you once, and your head's gonna be a problem. So you might want to be careful.
Oh dear.
RC might not have to hit him for that to be a problem based
Just
on
had to
last
push
year.
him down.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like defensive backs are kind of the toughest people, just because,
Especially a free safety. Like that,
Oh, yeah.
Those dudes don't
Free
care
safeties
at all.
from that era, especially.
Ryan Clark was a mean hitter. I'm sure you remember.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Watched it happen to your team.
The other safety, occupies space in my mind.
Sure,
But-
but Ryan Clark certainly laid some wood to some Ravens, and
Yeah.
it was costly to the Ravens. Physical harm and on the scoreboard.
I mean, yeah, that's what happened in those days.
Yeah.
Jackson Smith-Njigba has a broken wrist and had surgery and will miss a few weeks. This is why I'm
Well,
not
he's-
in the NFL.
So he should miss a few weeks.
a few
but-
weeks.
What does a few mean?
So
3 or 6?
he should definitely be back before October. But apparently they're saying there's an outside chance he could suit up week 1, which I'm like, he just had wrist surgery. He's a wide receiver, and he's going to be ready week 1.
All one-handed catches.
He would have, that would be the only option.
Is he gonna have like the opposite of the club that dudes have on their hand, where it's like something that helps them actually catch the ball, instead of like the Jason Pierre-Paul just smack you on the head with this thing?
I'm imagining one of those club hands, but there's a hole at the end and it's a vacuum, so it just sucks in the ball into it.
That's the new stickum right there, man. Everybody break their wrists and get big vacuum hands. That'd be cool.
I mean, I feel like he would, if he's going to play, he'd just be into block or something. But you can't have a receiver with one good arm. That
I mean, you look at Pickens and Odell; they pulled it off.
But they're freaks though. Right.
Jackson Smith-Njigba's a freak. He's great.
But George Pickens and Odell Beckham Jr. are freaks of freaks, right? This, the whole league is full of freaks, and
Yeah.
the guys you named are the freakish.
Well, maybe
The freakiest of the freaks.
maybe
Yeah, the
JSN's
most
throwing
freaky.
his hat in the ring as he's joining that club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's all on the notable injuries. Training camp and preseason news. The Colts are permitting Jonathan Taylor to seek a trade. For some reason it says ankle. No, it's...
Well, no. So Jonathan Taylor has an ankle injury as well.
Does he? Or is he,
He's
underpaid?
on the injury report. He's on the injury report with an ankle injury. Beyond that, who knows? But the thing about them permitting him to seek a trade is that what I'm hearing is they're asking for a first rounder in return.
They're not getting that.
That's not gonna happen.
So a team is going to have to be willing to give up first round draft capital,
And pay him.
and they're going to have to be willing to pay him, because otherwise he's just a rental, and what's the point? So, and he wants big money. Quite frankly, he deserves big money. It's not like he was terrible last year. He just was, he was hurt, and he wasn't as effective as he was the year before when he was insane. He was averaging, over 6 yards a carry 2 years ago? He had 1,800 yards. I know that much. And I know he had a lot of touches, but I think he was at least over 5.5 yards a carry, if not 6. He was insanely efficient and effective in 2021. So
Helped your boy win a fantasy championship in my other league.
yeah, so he's going to want big money. He's going to deserve big money. So I don't see how the Colts are going to get what they want in this trade. And the other side of that is kind of the same thing. It goes back to what Austin Eckler was talking about earlier this summer when he was given permission by the Chargers initially to seek a trade before they ultimately got something worked out. He expressed frustration, rightfully so, that you have these teams that control you at least for the immediate future, have you under contract. They're willing to consider trading you. They're not willing to pay you big money, but they want big returns in a trade. It does not make sense. how can you hold somebody at such a high value that if you're going to give him to somebody else, you expect a king's ransom, but then you're not willing to give him what he is due, what you view him as worth somewhere else. Apparently, you don't think he's worth that with you.
Well, I mean, they're not negotiating in good faith, right? Like, they're asking for a first-round pick. We know, and they know, they're not getting a first-round pick. Who's going to offer that? I feel like only the Colts are dumb enough to
Done it before.
offer that. Yeah.
Did it for a far worse running back.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're in this type of situation, yes, you are stuck. Yeah. So,
Well, are we sure, though, that the Colts even care about whether or not they get that return? Because it feels like, to me, this is almost their way of saying, yeah, sure, you can ask for a trade, but we're going to set the price so high that you're never going to get one. So you might as well just come back with your tail between your legs and play for us.
And, while that may not be negotiating in bad faith, it's certainly a bad faith offer to allow him to seek a trade.
Yeah. It's just, it feels like they don't really, almost like, this feels like the Ravens with Lamar in the offseason where they said, yeah, we're going to put this, the non-exclusive tag on you or whatever the fancy term they have for it.
Sure, whatever.
And there's you can go seek a trade, but since the Ravens could match any offer, teams weren't really all that interested in engaging with, a full-throated effort to acquire Lamar Jackson because they knew, why am I going to waste my time setting the price for somebody else? I'm doing the work for them. And so nobody really played ball. And so Lamar ultimately went back to the table. But the difference is Lamar had a lot of leverage because he's the quarterback. The running back doesn't have that.
This quarterback.
Yeah, he's the franchise quarterback and like I mentioned back in March and April, with a new offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Right? A lot of new weapons on the offense.
Yeah.
Quarterback needs to be there for all those meetings, pre-draft, OTAs. You can't have him holding out in July and August at the start of training camp. He's the quarterback. But running back, you can find somebody to go run between the tackles. It might not run as well. They definitely won't run as well as Jonathan Taylor, but it's not an immediate need to be filled. And the Colts they seem like they're playing chicken with him a little bit.
Yeah.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have named Baker Mayfield as their Week 1 starter.
Wake and Baker, nice, good for him.
Yeah, not too much of a surprise there. Definitely feel like he's better than Kyle Trask.
Sure.
You feel like that?
Yeah. Since 2021, I believe, Baker Mayfield leads the NFL in interceptions thrown with 36. So
Since when?
I think it's since 2021.
So his second year in the NFL then.
I think so.
Okay.
Baker was drafted in 2018.
Oh, wow, he is that old. I forgot.
Yes.
I keep forgetting he's been around.
I think it said 2021. Maybe it was 2020, but
that's crazy because he didn't even play the whole season last year. Like he played.
Yeah.
He got benched by the Panthers, then they got rid of him, and the Rams picked him up and he played a few games there.
Yeah.
But he definitely wasn't 17 games. Not even close.
He's been throwing a lot of interceptions lately, so we'll see what happens.
Even
this
more
year.
than his boy Sam Darnold.
We already know somebody who's
games.
thrown 30 interceptions in a season in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform.
Sure.
Yeah, Jameis went
Also
30 for
threw
30.
Yeah, also
now
threw 30
he's
touchdowns.
wearing a New Orleans Saints uniform.
Yes, he is.
I love it.
Are they going to start him or
Of
start?
course not. Derek Carr's going to start.
Oh, Carr. That's right. I was going to say, is it starting Andy Dalton or Taysom Hill? I couldn't remember.
No, where's Andy Dalton now? He's with the Panthers now, right?
Yeah.
I think he's with the Panthers because they were talking about starting him over
yes.
Bryce Young. I'm like, you're not going to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, get serious. We know you're not going to do that.
Nope.
Yeah. The Manders have named Sam Howell their Week 1 starter.
Yeah.
I thought they did this like 7 or 8 months ago.
Yeah, I felt like they did this,
Back in
when
December?
they quit on the season last year.
Yeah. Well, now it's official.
good for him.
They were giving him and Jacoby Brissett some run, but I guess this past weekend Jacoby Brissett was just not good.
He's not played well this preseason.
And so that's kind of made their decision pretty easy.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
It's a decision they wanted to make anyway. So,
Yeah, exactly. It's a decision they wanted to make, but now you can say that they're justified in making it.
Yep.
Okay. Is that it for football? Am I missing anything?
So, I want to talk just a little bit of Hard Knocks.
Well, we also had one more.
Yeah,
thing.
and there was one other thing on there that Eric added.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I'm missing something.
Yeah, but we'll talk. I'll talk some Hard Knocks real quick. So, yesterday's episode was pretty fun. You had Zach Wilson running crazy during the preseason game, and the coaches and Aaron Rodgers giving him a hard time for not running out of bounds, instead coming back in and taking a hard hit. Nobody was like too upset with him, but still, dude, you gotta protect yourself, especially in a preseason game. Like, this game is meaningless. But there were a few pretty funny moments in the episode. So we got to see Randall Cobb and his wife and their kids, and that was really cool. He's got a couple of really adorable sons, and his wife is pregnant, and so we got to see them reveal that news to their two sons. And it was really funny and really cute because one of the two boys, when they told them that mommy has a baby in her belly, one of the sons said, "I want a baby in my belly."
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You want no part of that.
So that was really funny and adorable. And then rookie wide receiver Jerome Cap, they did like a redo of the rookie show because the first rookie show was just so terrible that the team allowed the rookies another chance to do their performances. And so Jerome Cap, he did Eminem's piece from the end of 8 Mile, the freestyle at the end of 8 Mile. And as he started, I was like, oh no.
That sounds like it's going to be awful.
It was actually pretty good. He did a pretty good job, and everybody, like all of his teammates, got super into it.
Oh, nice.
I was impressed. So that was hilarious and also really cool and yeah, low-key impressive. So that was kind of yesterday's episode of Hard Knocks. Either 1 or 2 episodes left. I don't remember if they do a 5th episode. So I know they'll have one next week after their 3rd preseason game. I just don't know if they have another one. They probably do the following week because they'll still have practice and they still have to cut the roster down leading into the regular season. But yeah.
I've only ever seen one season of Hard Knocks, and it was the first one because it's on YouTube.
Which was also the Jets.
It was the Ravens.
Wait, the first one was the Ravens?
I think it was
Yes.
the Ravens, yeah.
Oh, I thought the first one was the Jets. I know they did the Jets back in 2001. Was that wasn't the first season?
All I know is that the Ravens was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, with everybody looking all young and stuff, right? Ray Lewis and Shannon Sharp and everybody.
Was that going into their Super Bowl season?
I think it was immediately after the Super Bowl because it was like that preseason game in Philly that got canceled was that year because they were supposed to play up at the Vet, and of course they didn't sow down the turf properly or something between the Eagles game and the most recent Phillies game, so that game was just canceled. That's my lasting memory of the Vet right there. Let's see, Trey Lance. He did something, or something happened to him.
Well, it seems like the 49ers brass has decided to complete their depth chart at the quarterback position, and Trey Lance is officially QB3 behind Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy. Now, I think everybody knew that Brock Purdy was clearly QB1 going into going to training camp, and he wasn't likely to lose that position with,
Especially with
Sam
the comment,
Darnold and Trey Lance behind
but
him.
also the comments made by Kyle Shanahan,
Right.
which were very much juxtaposed with his comments about Trey Lance like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, when he said, I don't even know if anybody's going to be alive next week. I was like, well, geez. And then this time he's like, yeah, something catastrophic would have to happen for Brock Purdy not to be our starter week 1.
All right, well, there you go. I mean, again, the surprising part of this isn't that Purdy is the starter. The surprising part to some might be the fact that Darnold is QB2 and Lance is the QB3.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well,
Surprises me. We know
Sam Darnold is
Darnold's a
notorious bum. So, that is curious, especially because I've seen a lot of tweets saying, "Well, you got to go with the guy with the higher floor," and I'm like, Sam Darnold's floor is the pits of hell.
Yeah.
He is the worst decision maker in the league. He's terrible. He's got sawdust for brains. He doesn't know what he's doing at all.
Trey Lance's floor is also that low.
It's really not,
I mean, that's
though.
everybody's floor, isn't it?
It's really not. Like, Sam Darnold is just out there seeing ghosts and all this stuff.
Slinging picks and collecting
Trey Lance
checks.
played a season and a game in college, and he was the least accurate quarterback ever.
Ever. Based on what?
Based on metrics.
Well, he took
What
over for
metrics?
Carson Wentz.
Based on advanced stats.
What advanced stats? Provide the stats. Cite your sources, journalist major. Come on, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Least accurate quarterback of all time.
Of all time.
That sounds like a big claim, Corey.
Ever is a little bit of
Okay, so just to be clear, so you were exaggerating, but
slightly.
playing
But
college
he
football
was
since
incredibly
1869.
inaccurate as a college passer.
okay, so my thing is though, Trey Lance at least has mobility. He has a better arm in terms of just strength than Sam Darnold, and the fact is that he hasn't really had a chance here. Like, I'm not saying that he deserves one because, obviously Brock Purdy has earned the starting role. He played well last year, and he certainly has the high floor style of quarterbacking that suits Kyle Shanahan's offense because they
Jimmy
love to
G
run the
sucks.
ball. They love to just kind of dink it and dunk it and let Deebo Samuel run really far with it. Right? Like, it's not a whole lot is asked of the quarterback. Just basically do a little something and don't make mistakes. Well, Brock Purdy did that, and he did a pretty good job. So they're rolling with him. But it's just a little surprising because this entire process, the 49ers have not treated Trey Lance like they traded 3 first-round picks to draft him number 3 overall.
Okay, but if they did, we'd be talking on the flip side, like this is the sunk cost fallacy. Like you've put this into him, and so you're just trying to get something out of it when like you need to just like accept your losses.
Okay, but it's not really accepting your losses when you go out of your way to bury him on the depth chart because now you're hurting his value.
Well, okay, but to be fair, I think that if this had been last year, they would have cut him. I think the reason they're keeping him is because they know that after what happened last year, they need to keep a third quarterback. In fact, the NFL changed the roster rules to add an extra roster spot specifically at the quarterback position so that what happened to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game last year doesn't happen again, or at least is much less likely to happen again.
No, the reason they're not cutting him is because then they have to pay him all the money they still owe him.
Maybe
They wouldn't have cut him last year either because
maybe that's why he's the QB3 instead of I forget who their QB4, well, who is now their QB4 because they
do they have a QB4?
They had another guy in
was
camp at one point.
2001? Like
they
Tom
had another
Brady's
guy in
QB4.
camp at one point, and
I mean,
at
that might
there
be
was
one
some
of us
talk
for
that
all we
Lance
know.
might be behind him.
QB4.
Right, like my point here is not to suggest that the 49ers are somehow wronging Trey Lance. My point is to suggest that this has to be viewed as one of the worst drafts picks and worst trades ever made.
No, absolutely.
Like this is an abomination. And the thing is, the reason why I mentioned the fact that they're not treating this like they drafted this guy with the 3rd overall pick is because the whole time we've wondered, did they ever actually want this guy? And for a guy who's played like 5 minutes in the NFL, who everybody at this table or desk understood, or at least Evan and I saw him as a project quarterback. Corey just wrote him off as a bust right away, which, looking pretty good. But it was pretty clear that the guy was going to need work and was going to require patience. So why the hell did they draft him when they clearly weren't in position to have any patience with him? None of it made any sense, and I honestly, I don't know what to say about it. It's just kind of crazy that it came to this, but...
All right, so this is just back to like what I was saying before. So this is from PFF.
Okay, a trustworthy source.
Going into this year's draft, the only highly touted prospect from the past 10 years to post a lower accuracy rate in college than Anthony Richardson was Trey Lance.
Okay.
So Trey Lance had the worst accuracy rate in college of any highly touted quarterback prospect over the past decade at least.
All right, but again, everybody knew that he was a project quarterback. So what did they?
There were a
why
lot
did
of
they
people
pick him?
who were treating him as a lot more than a project quarterback, though. There were a lot of teams that were looking at him as like he could be QB1 day one. I don't know why.
Okay,
but there was a lot of talk like that going into that draft.
But what about the fact that everybody said he wanted to be, or Kyle Shanahan seemed to want Mac Jones?
Well, and Alex is basically making that point right now in our chat. He's saying he's being treated like the front office drafted him rather than the coaches.
Okay, but even John Lynch seems like he's pretty done with the guy, doesn't he? I mean,
well, sure, but again, John Lynch does strike me as the kind of person who's not just going to continue. He's not so prideful that he's gonna be like, no, like this has to work because otherwise I'm an idiot and I'm gonna look foolish. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to accept that I made the wrong call on this one.
Okay, but here's the thing. I think we all knew that Trey Lance's time in the sun, as limited as it was, as the 49ers starting quarterback was over as soon as Brock Purdy stepped in and did what he did last year. Like, it was clear he's going to be their quarterback. Okay, gotcha. But there's been a whole lot of lying going on about, Sam Darnold versus Trey Lance and their performances this preseason. And it strikes me as propaganda, right? Like, there's been an insistence that Lance has been garbage and that Sam Darnold has somehow been competent when he hasn't. They've scored on 1 of their 8 drives. He's been as bad as usual. And you're expecting me to just buy into the idea, oh yeah, Trey Lance just is an absolute colossal bum and Sam Darnold is a legit backup quarterback now. I don't buy it.
I'm not going to sit here and try and say, like, oh, Sam Darnold's not as bad as you're saying he is. Like, Sam Darnold is bad.
Mm-hmm.
But he at least has had a short... He had like a 3 or 4 week stretch with Carolina where he looked like maybe he would actually be a competent quarterback. Trey Lance has never had a week where he has looked like he could be a competent quarterback.
He's played like 2 weeks total. Sam Darnold's had 60 starts, and the only thing you can highlight is one 3-game stretch where he looked not terrible, and then he was immediately the worst quarterback in football for the rest of the season. Like, just slinging picks everywhere.
I said, he's a bad quarterback, but at least he's done something at some point. As short-lived and as still unimpressive as it may have been, it's still more than
12 times the games. He's had 12 times the starts. He's a proven failure. Trey Lance looks like he's going to be a failure, but I'm not going to say he's proven anything when he's only had, 7 games under his belt? But, let's be honest, though. Like, is anybody interested in trading for Trey Lance?
No.
Why not? If you don't have a quarterback,
be?
Because he's cheap, he's controllable for at least 3 more years. If you don't have a quarterback, why wouldn't you kick the tires on him?
What's a team that you think should consider trading for Trey Lance?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I would rather have Baker Mayfield.
I wouldn't.
I
Baker's
would
a bum.
absolutely rather have Baker Mayfield.
He has
than
no
Trey
upside.
Lance.
No upside. He's cooked. He sucks. I'm off him. He's done. He ruined his chance in 3 different spots already. He's done. Why would I want him? Like, I'd rather, again, I'm not saying that Trey Lance is going to go there and tear it up. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. But a year 3 quarterback with 7 starts under his belt versus a guy who's, 30 years old now and has absolutely sucked for the better part of his career and is playing in a situation that isn't nearly as good as the one he left in Cleveland.
Baker's 28.
I don't buy it. I think the Bucs should give him a call. I think they should.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
How about how about this? How about the Arizona Cardinals as the QB1 until Kyler Murray comes back? Why not? Dead air.
No, so I'm just thinking about this because we know what Colt McCoy is at this point. Trey Lance, I would say, has a lower floor but higher upside than Colt McCoy, and so maybe it's worth it from that perspective. It certainly would give you an opportunity to just kind of see what he can do, but And maybe he'd be cheap. I don't know. If he'd be cheap enough that it makes sense just to get him as a rental that's just going to hold you over until Kyler Murray, maybe that makes sense.
As far as I'm concerned, the 49ers just need to get him off the roster. They can't ask for a whole lot for him.
And I mean, if you're burying him on the depth chart, if you have him, number 3 behind Sam Darnold, you really can't ask for a whole lot.
No, because you've already said he's not good.
And you can't be like, oh, well, we don't want to send him to a division rival. Because, what, you're going to be scared of the guy that you buried on your depth chart?
No.
How are you going to look when that happens?
Your actions indicate you want him starting against you.
Out of those 2, the Cardinals does make a little bit of sense to bring him in, kick the tires on him until Kyler Murray comes back. You're not going to be worse off, even if we hit his floor, which, as I said, I believe is lower than Colt McCoy's. Even then, with Colt McCoy, the team is going to be.
They're not going to win anything.
They're not going to win anything. They're even with Kyler Murray expected to be back within the first 6 weeks or so of the season. They're currently projected to be the number 1 pick in the draft next year.
Mm-hmm. Who's projecting that?
Me, certainly.
I've heard.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just curious.
Sources. I don't even know if Football Outsiders is like doing that.
Does
stuff
that even
right
exist
now.
anymore? Like,
Right.
I don't know
I
what's
haven't
going
looked
on
in the
with
last couple of weeks, but I've seen and heard a couple of projections that had them picking first overall. I've definitely heard on the Fantasy Football podcast, and those guys are Cardinals fans.
Oh,
so
no,
they're
that's
in
a
the
shame.
know. They're in the know on the Cardinals and how bad they are right now.
Yeah.
So I definitely trust that source. But yeah, so of the two, that one would actually make some sense to me.
Third idea.
Don't say the Commanders.
Of course not. No. Not the Commanders.
It's like, are you really gonna make me try and like pick between Sam Howell and Trey
No,
Lance?
I'm not going to make you do that.
I will
And,
not do it.
and they're not interested in doing that anyway. The third idea I have is Seattle Seahawks backup quarterback. Put him behind Geno Smith.
Who is the Seahawks backup quarterback?
I don't
right
know.
now?
Does it
I don't
matter?
even know.
It doesn't really matter, but yeah, again, it's just to have him on the roster. See what maybe you can
Yeah.
figure something out with him. I'm just saying, like
Kyle Shanahan couldn't figure something out with him.
Kyle Shanahan has shown absolutely zero ability to develop a quarterback. He's never done
Their
it.
backup is Drew Lock.
Drew Lock.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm saying, though, right? Like,
He's going to be rapping on the sideline the whole game.
oh my God.
Again, another player I would say maybe a higher floor, but certainly a much lower ceiling than Trey
Drew Lock,
Lance.
my goodness. That guy's.
Wasn't he a first rounder?
I think he was
Was he?
second
I think he was
round.
second. I think he was second.
Oh,
I
Look
can,
it
I
up,
can
yeah.
look it up real
but
quick.
he was
But,
picked too highly to be as bad as he is.
Yeah, he's had like
might have been
he's
a
had like
first
one
rounder.
or two decent games in his career, and everything
He's
else
talented.
has been terrible.
But he's a goofball.
He was picked. Oh man, this. I don't even know where. Yeah,
He's just been
second round.
disappeared.
Second round in 2019. He was the 42nd overall
Undrafted.
pick.
Or hey, send Trey Lance to Denver, and if Russ, Mr. Unlimited, can't play, give Sean Payton a shot with the young guy. Yeah, why not? Give it a go.
Mr. Unlimited. Oh my goodness.
Mr. Very Limited.
Extremely limited.
curious-
Except in the number of bathrooms in his house. Isn't it like
curious-
22 or something?
No, he had like 13 because
Oh, okay.
he actually
He
ended up
barely got past it for his touchdown total last
inched
year.
right
Barely.
over the edge. Inched
okay.
right over the edge.
How do you barely? beat
He was
that number?
not on pace about week 12.
I don't think he was on pace week 15.
Yeah, he threw a few to really close the gap late, but yes, woof. I'm curious to see how that goes. Like
Your boy Sean Payton.
Sean Payton, who
You sent him up the rope.
I did.
You sure did.
And then I tried to send him to Los Angeles with the Chargers by getting Brandon Staley up out of there. But somehow he kept his job. Like the most deserving guy that I've killed didn't die. It doesn't make
But
any
that's
sense.
because you tried to. A
little bit, yeah.
You did that with the intention of getting him fired, just a little bit.
I was
like
trying to
you
set
made
him
a
up.
good argument for why it could happen if they had a good year, but you were very much targeting him for a firing.
It was a spiteful pick, yes. Like,
and the universe went ahead and said, "Yeah, no, we're not giving you this."
Should have been
one."
fired.
even though he should have been. He 100% deserved the firing. Blew a 27-point lead in a playoff game. And they're just like, yeah, let's bring this guy back. You
yeah.
gotta be kidding me.
Well, I mean, at least he made the playoffs.
Refused to go to the playoffs the year before.
Yes.
Just against the Raiders.
Ruined the greatest of all
Yeah,
time.
the Raiders were ready to just lay down and tie and say, let's both go to the playoffs. And he's like, no, I'm gonna call timeout. Like, what are you doing? God, he's such an idiot.
Yeah. It's not even too cute by half. It's too cute by full, right? It's way too cute.
We can move on from football.
Yeah. We spent more time on football than we really intended to today. We're gonna be spending a lot of time on football over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In the next, 6 months after that?
The most recent article on Football Outsiders is still from May 26th.
Oh.
So that's not good.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Shots is gone, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Apparently there's NBA something happening.
What?
It's
Not
on
really.
here.
I put this in there because we didn't have a whole lot of topics, but
Oh.
I threw this in there just because.
Okay.
What
What
is
is it?
it?
So y'all probably are aware to some extent that Gilbert Arenas has, I don't know if we call it a podcast or a YouTube show
I
or
literally
something.
just found out about that recently because
Everybody has a
Rashawn and I were
podcast.
listening to it.
We have a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rashawn and I we started to listen to it on the way out to my parents' house, but the audio quality was so bad, like we couldn't understand what anybody was saying, so
Ah.
we turned it off.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, Steph Curry was sitting down with Gilbert and some other guys. I don't remember who was
And
all
some other guys.
sitting around, and they were asking him about his standing in terms of the pantheon of great basketball quarterbacks, point guards.
There you go.
It's a slick little save. So, anyway, Steph basically said, or Gilbert asked him, "Do you think who's the greatest point guard of all time?" And Steph was like, "Me." And then he followed up and said, "It's me and Magic. That's the conversation." And the second part, he's 100% right. Like, that's the discussion of who's the best point guard ever.
Shauna would definitely agree with that argument.
Yeah, it's between Magic and Steph. Those are 1-2. And I'm not really all that interested in getting into who's who. I was more surprised that Steph actually said it.
Yeah, that's uncharacteristically self-promoting of him.
Yeah,
that's not really been his MO.
He very much gives you the cliche talk normally when you ask him about his own standing among the NBA greats. It's usually, oh well, I looked up to all those guys. I'm just trying to be the best version of Steph that I can be, and blah blah blah, and all this crap that you don't actually want to hear, but everybody says. But then when he actually says the thing he really thinks, everybody gets mad. Well, he said the thing that he really thinks, I guess, and everybody's getting mad. Or at least talking about it. And but it kind of highlights a little bit of an attitude shift I've seen from Steph this offseason, where he's kind of been a little bit more edgy like that. Like at various camps that he's hosted and things like that. He said a lot of things that indicated he's not really playing around this year. And specifically talking about, some people think that might be directed at some of the younger guys on the Warriors, like Jonathan Kuminga or the recently jettisoned Jordan Poole, but I firmly believe that some of those talking points of check your ego at the door type of stuff, I think it was more directed at guys like Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, if I'm being honest, because Klay's had a lot of moments the last couple of years where he doesn't seem to have accepted the fact that post-injury he's not the same player that he was. He takes a lot of bad shots. He plays selfishly a lot of the time. And, of course, we know Draymond, yap nonstop. It feels like Steph isn't really in the mood for this crap anymore. I mean, the Warriors last year had what was, by all accounts, a disappointment of a season. They're coming off a title. Yeah. They ran it back with a group that was mostly the same. Like, they had some changes to their roster, but
one of the biggest changes to their roster was that they didn't start the season with Gary Payton II.
Yeah.
But he finished the year with them.
Yeah, he came back to them via trade, and they gave the younger guys more opportunities to play, and sometimes they didn't really pan out. We know James Wiseman didn't pan out. But for the most part, it was the same squad, but just a lot less focused. Their road record was terrible, and as had been pointed out by a lot of people that within NBA circles, the main reason for a home-road differential that you would see is obviously lack of focus, which comes from a lack of chemistry, right? Like when you can feel it if you've ever been someone rooting for the road team in a packed stadium or a packed arena. It feels like it's you against everybody else. So you really got to have everybody around you's back, and you've got to be on a string. You can't be out here freelancing. You can't be out here trying to do your own thing because you're never going to make it. Mm-hmm. And Draymond has said multiple times in the offseason that he felt like he didn't have his effective leadership out there because he was trying to, quote-unquote, win back the trust of his teammates after he knocked out Jordan Poole in the preseason. And I'm like, well, then don't knock out your teammate in the preseason. That's a real easy solve. And then Draymond's gone on after that and still popped off and had a whole bunch of...
Really? Draymond was still talking.
Yeah, and has had nothing good to say about Jordan Poole, even though Poole has, to his credit, not said anything... and that hasn't even touched the issue of what happened with him and Draymond last October. And Draymond just keeps going there. And I think that, part of, this new version of Steph, this Steph 2.0, is kind of baking that in and saying, hey, man, like, it's time for me to take over. Because the shenanigans that these fools got away with when we were winning, well, we didn't win last year. So it's time for daddy to, parent the kids a little bit. And I think that's kind of what's going on. And it's affected the way he carries himself outside of just, the Warriors. It's also how he comports himself with the media and how he talks about himself. He's not willing to just be the happy-go-lucky, having fun out there, hitting threes and doing the whirly bird down the court. No, he's pissed off.
Yeah, and we also just had Underrated come out this summer on Apple Plus. So, if you haven't seen that, you can check that out. But, I'm sure coming off of that, you want to have a really good season right after like a documentary about you comes out.
Yeah.
And you're still an active player. You don't want to come out and disappoint, and everybody like just continues to underrate you. You want to come out and prove like, yeah, you guys counted me out, and here I am again at the top.
I think Steph has adequately proved himself.
Oh, well, yes,
time and time
I
again.
agree.
So
I think that you come off of a disappointing season, and this documentary comes out, and it's titled Underrated. You kind of want to be at the top again.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm not saying that I think he has anything left to prove. I think that that's a perfectly fair duo to say are the best two of all time. Yeah. But you still if you're still around, like, you're competitive. He's competitive. He wants to win, and I think that those factors make it even more pressing for him to win.
Yeah, there's always more room in the trophy case. So like there's nothing wrong with having that competitive edge, even when you're already as accomplished as he is. So that's all I got on the NBA, Evan. We can move on to baseball.
Speaking of teams with a lot of room in their trophy case, the Orioles. Talk about them O's, hon. 4-3 since our last show. They lost the series to the Padres, but went to Oakland and swept the A's. And they lost last night to Toronto in extras. Very predictably, I might add. As soon as Bauman took them out, I'm like, we're done.
First pitch.
Yeah,
Crack over the fence.
I didn't even have time to say out loud to myself that he's about to give up a home run. Right? The thought had just formed in my head, and there it goes, over the fence.
As soon as I saw him come in, like, 'cause I don't always think about things like what hand the pitcher uses, because it's just not.
It doesn't matter which one Bauman uses.
Yeah, but like,
he sucks.
But when I see Bauman's in the game, and I see him right-handed pitcher, and I see Brandon Belt in the batter's box, who has worn out Orioles pitching a lot this year, and I'm like, Brandon Belt hits dingers, and Brandon Belt's a lefty, and he's hitting up against a right-handed hitter or right-handed pitcher in Oriole Park, where lefties thrive and righties go to die. I'm like, this is bad news. And then first pitch, meatball right down the middle, and he puts it into the seats, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's it. We lost. We'll get him tomorrow. A little bit of a surprise that Brandon Hyde didn't stick to the strategy that the Orioles have used to success all year, heading into extra innings, where Bautista came in for the ninth inning. He pitched very efficiently, only threw 9 pitches to get the 3 outs. And then the Orioles failed to score in the bottom of the ninth inning to walk them off. So normally, top of the 10th, you put Bautista back out there. You trust him and his incredible strikeout capabilities to not only give up additional runs, but not allow the fake runner to score either. And then trust the Orioles to knock in their guy from second base, because that's what the Orioles have done specifically to the Blue Jays multiple times this year. And yet Bautista did not pitch the 10th, and I don't really know why. Like, I understand if you want to say, hey, he's pitched a lot this year, the bullpen's wearing down, you don't want him to throw 2 innings. Okay, I don't love it, but whatever. But these people are saying, well, those games that he did, that they were on the road and already scored for us. I'm like, what difference does that make? They still have to score the next inning too.
Yeah.
Like, just leave him out there and trust him to get the job done, and then put your team in a position to win the game in the bottom of the inning. I don't. That logic doesn't compute to me. And the idea of I don't want to burn him up and not have him available again until Friday. I'm like, well, okay, but now we don't even
win tonight.
We don't even
Friday
know.
Doesn't matter.
We don't even know if he's going to be pitching tonight. Like,
you don't even know if you're going to be in a situation where you need him on Friday. You know you're in a situation tonight that you need him.
Yeah, and Dean Kramer is probably going to give up 15 runs tonight, and he's definitely not going to need him. So, you got to win the games that you're playing right now when you have a chance.
Play to win the game.
And, Hyde has normally made the right decision. Last night he did not.
Yeah, this was analogous to Buck leaving Britton in the bullpen to bring in Ubaldo.
Not quite as bad as that, but
yeah. But I mean, still, the best pitcher on your team was available to pitch, and you're like, nah, we'll throw somebody else.
Yeah, it was definitely a bad decision. It was not optimal management.
Yeah. Also, suboptimal management. John Angelos and his mouth. This guy's dumb as a bag of hammers. And
this is the second time in a row the Orioles come off a sweep, have an off day on a Monday, and the headlines are all about all the dumb stuff the owner's doing. Suspending the lead broadcaster, and now doing stories with the New York Times about how, we don't have any money. kidding me?
Yeah. Meanwhile, the state of Maryland's about to fork over $600 million for Camden Yards upgrades, provided that they sign the lease extension, and that hasn't happened yet either, because John Angelos has his head squarely lodged in his behind.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, so I'm so tired of this full,
He's worse than his dad.
nepotism personified.
Like we thought Peter Angelos was among the worst owners in all of North American sports.
He might have been.
We were kind of hoping that his son would be better, and he's not. He's
foolish.
worse. Like, at least Pete spent money. He didn't spend it wisely,
Yeah.
but he spent money. Like, the Orioles consistently had a payroll that was at least in the middle of the pack, if not slightly favoring towards the upper echelon of the league when Peter Angelos was supposedly running the show. But managing partner John Angelos, not interested in spending any money, even though the team made $65 million in profit last year, despite the fact that nobody came to the games. Like, now people are actually coming to the games and buying shirts and
I'm
jerseys
curious
and
to
stuff.
see what that revenue is going to look like this year. It might be
Well,
it might be in the
he's-
100 million.
John
range.
Angelos has offered to open up the books several
Well, he
times,
didn't
and that
offer.
has yet to happen.
He didn't offer. He said, well, if you look at our books, we're like, well, then let's look at them. No. It's like that Simpsons bit where, like, the teacher's reading from some book, and he said, it's all right here in this book, and Lisa's like, let me see that. And he's like, no. He pulls it back from her. It's just like, come on, man. Like, this is a joke.
Also a joke. The Yankees
Oh, no.
lose 9 in a row. What in the world is going on in the Bronx?
Yeah. Our worst streak since 1982. I was not alive. Not a single player on the roster was alive. The last time the
hope
Yankees
not.
Well, if
lost
Brett
nine-
Gardner was still on there, he would be. So
41
maybe you
years
should
ago.
bring him back.
That's true. Brett Gardner would be, but barely. So it currently there's still time for this to change, but it currently looks like the streak will not reach 10. Aaron Judge has hit 2 home runs today, including a grand slam. They're currently leading 6-0 against the Nationals. I'm shocked because Luis Severino is on the mound for the Yankees.
Oh,
That
boy.
means that lead's not
Ticking
safe.
time bomb.
Even though he has pitched 5 clean innings, only 1 hit allowed, no runs scored, his ERA has only come down to 7.5 for the year.
Oh, okay. His ERA's just a second grader now. It was double digits when we went out to see
It
him.
was.
Driver's license
touchdown.
and everything.
Yeah.
So, I literally, as we were starting our MLB segment, as Evan starts to talk about the Orioles, I get a push notification.
Oh, no.
Brian Cashman said that 2023 has not panned out the way the Yankees intended, and we're going to evaluate it all.
Really?
You don't say. This hasn't gone the way we intended.
Gonna evaluate it all. Well, who's gonna evaluate him?
Right.
Hey.
No, there is only one GM in baseball who has held their position since 2012, I believe.
It's been around for a long
And he's
time.
been around since 98.
98.
He's the only person, he's the only GM who's been around, who is still in that position, who was in that position prior to 2012.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was in that position 14 years before that. It's time.
I mean, the Orioles have had
It's past
3 GMs
time.
since then.
The guy needs to go. He doesn't, whatever he may have had in the past, which I think was just
cash.
George Steinbrenner's
man.
It's just
pocketbook.
money, man. You had the Yes Network,
And,
you didn't have to
and
share
an
anything.
easier time getting really good prospects to come to New York.
Prospects.
That's gone.
Like young Gervis Solarte.
Well,
Veteran-
I'm not
veteran Hall
necessarily
of
saying
Famers,
I'm not necessarily saying prospects as in like farm system prospects. I'm talking about like free agents,
Yeah,
those
like
aren't prospects.
Roger Clemens.
but like youngish free agents,
Jason
guys
Giambi.
who like still
Giambino.
guys who still have like multiple years in the tank. We're not getting those guys anymore.
Darryl
So
Strawberry.
Mark Teixeira,
Ugh.
Nick Swisher,
Boy. Nick Swisher.
my boy. I love Nick.
I don't know if I would
love
say
to
he
see
was
Nick
a marquee
Swisher.
free agent, but yeah, he definitely likes to cheese.
I love Nick Swisher. I love his the bit from like spring training when he was with Cleveland. Him and the dude, they like had bunk beds, and he just like keeps talking to guys. He's trying to go to sleep. You've never seen this?
I'm sure I have, but
I'll have to find this
I
out to
don't.
you later. But anyway,
So yeah, the Yankees are not in a good way right now. They are several games below 500. They brought up their number 3 prospect, outfielder Everson Pereira, along with infielder Oswald Peraza this week. Just trying to get some new blood in the building, I guess. Some in the media are suggesting that Judge holds some blame for the team's woes, which is just
Why? Because he got hurt?
ridiculous to me. Meanwhile, really the first writer in the media that I have seen suggest what Eric, you brought up last week, Mike Exisa from CBS Sports suggested maybe they need to shut Aaron Judge down for the rest of the season, which at this point, like last week we were saying our chances of making the playoffs are nil.
Yeah.
What does that mean it is this week when we've gone, it's been
You haven't lost.
it's
You haven't
been
won
9
since then.
days
Yeah.
since our last podcast, and we haven't won a game since then, and we hadn't won a game in 3 days
2021
before that.
Orioles.
I mean, yeah.
So
Haven't
you
the
know
A's won a game in that?
we are 5 games below 500.
Yikes.
The 4th place team in our division, the Boston Red Sox, are 6 games above 500.
Ooh.
Yeah, you're not catching that.
We're not catching them. They are 11.5 games out of the lead in the East. We are 17 games out. We're
17
not catching.
out?
We're not catching the Red Sox, and if we're not catching the Red Sox, we're not catching a wild card spot.
Nope.
Because the Red Sox might not even get a wild card.
They're not holding one right now.
right.
I mean,
They've got a shot at it, but they're not holding it currently.
There's several
So if
other
we're not
teams you gotta
catching
climb
them,
over,
then
yeah.
we're definitely not getting one. So, you know, if he's still dealing with some toe pain, like I get it. You know, you don't want to actually give up on the season. The season's gone. I'm sorry. Accept it.
Yeah, it's
Deal with it.
Yep.
they're behind the Angels
You
right
don't
now.
want to have, you know, any reason for fans not to show up because, you know, Aaron Judge is a draw. Fans already have a reason not to show up. Honestly, when your team is as garbage as this is, I don't know if that's a reason to go to the ballpark to see Aaron Judge. It's a reason maybe just tune in and watch his at-bats or something on TV.
Also, Yankees tickets are super expensive.
And Yankees tickets are super expensive, and you're not seeing a winning team right now.
No.
So I don't see either of those arguments for keeping him in the lineup as holding any weight whatsoever.
The Yankees are 10 games back of Seattle for the last wild card spot.
Yeah, with like less than 40 to go.
Yeah,
that's
there's like
not,
30-some games
that
left.
turnaround's not happening. Like, come on. Especially because part of it is you've got to actually show that you can win, right? Like, I've said it a lot. Get to 500 and then worry about your playoff position. Well, you're under 500 now. And you're going to spend, even if you get, you know, as hot as humanly possible, you're going to spend the better part of a week just getting back to 500. And that's if you win all the games.
Do it in that stretch, like
you're probably not going to do it.
That's not going to happen. We went from 4 games above 500 to 5 games below 500 in 9 games.
Yeah, and think about it. Like, if the Yankees somehow, like, let's say they win tonight, and then after that they go 7-3 in their next 10. Okay, cool. So then you're back to 500. But so what? Now there's 28 games left, and you're probably still going to be 7, 8, 9 games out of the wild card. You're never going to make that up. It's just it's not going to happen. And you know, last week when I said, "Hey, maybe the Yankees should shut them down," or shut Aaron Judge down, I was feeling like, that's pretty prescient right now. They keep losing, and I was like, wait a second, I didn't even think it was going to be this bad. I said 2 weeks. It's been like 5 days. It's already time to call it. Like, hang it up, man. It's over. It's a lightning fast decline. Y'all were losing some bad teams too.
Oh yeah,
It wasn't like y'all were losing.
over the
Like,
last,
you lost to the Braves, okay, but what the hell?
So we lost 2 of 3 to Miami. We lost all 3 to the Braves. We lost all 3 to Boston. We lost the first game to Washington.
Lost 2 out of 3 to the White Sox.
Yeah, this
is before the streak.
You can keep going back before the streak because we hadn't won a single series since we swept the Royals.
Like, what is there to believe in with this Yankees team, right? Like,
Well, they have 7 more games against the Tigers. So.
Which we'll probably lose.
Tigers are a little better than I thought they would be, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
They're certainly better than the Royals.
That's
All right,
true.
well, the Yankees have a
They're better than the
doozy-
A's, and we couldn't beat the A's.
It's also true.
Yankees have a doozy of a road trip coming
Yeah, we got
up.
Tampa Bay. We
At
got
Tampa Bay,
Houston,
at Detroit, at Houston. Yikes.
and then we play home against Detroit. We play against Milwaukee. We play Boston again. Yeah, call it.
Yep, time of death. You know, so
I think it's kind of poetic that the Red Sox went into New York and, you know, delivered the death blow, right? Like, you know, the rivalry is lacking some juice this year between the Yankees and Red Sox being in 5th and 4th place respectively, but like, it was relevant this past weekend. Like, yikes! How you lose all of them?
It's not quite as bad as was it back in 2006 maybe when the Yankees played a rare 5-game series at Boston.
Oh yeah.
Because they had a doubleheader as a makeup game, and the Yankees went in there and won all 5 games. The Boston Massacre, and that was just the end of the season for the Red Sox. And I was like, oh my god, how do you lose all 5 games at home? That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's baseball.
That's ball.
Let's do a quick whip around the league, I guess.
The league.
Yeah, so we'll start at the bottom, of course, with the A's. They have the worst record in Major League Baseball, as all of y'all probably know. But this year there's a draft lottery in baseball, and it's you don't have to get all the way to the bottom to get the first pick in the draft.
Maybe the Yankees should consider trying to tank for a lottery spot.
I mean,
y'all are closer to that than the playoff spot by a lot.
Well, does that actually work, though? Because I'm seeing this note down here that I'm curious about. The Mets spent so much money that their pick drops 10 spots unless they're in the top 6.
Yes.
They're currently in 9th place. They would have the 9th overall pick, which
But
means
they
they'll
would
actually
drop
get the
to
19th overall pick, which I'm curious about. How does that work? Like, if you're spending money that inherently would suggest that you're not purposefully tanking, so why would you get penalized more
they
for
went
being bad?
way over the luxury tax.
Oh, so this is like part of the luxury tax penalty is that your draft position actually gets worse.
Yes.
So unless you're like so bad that like you really need some help in the draft.
And the Mets were in position to get a top 6 pick.
And then they started winning.
And then they started winning. Yeah.
So I
You
guess
suck so bad you don't even
I
suck
guess
good.
this is their way of imposing the world's most polite salary floor and salary cap is you can't go above this mark or else your draft lottery thing's gonna suck. But if you're below this mark and you've got a bunch of you're in a big market like the Nationals, like
They're not allowed to pick in the top 6 because they're in a big market.
they
or
weren't
something like
their lowest pick possible was like 10th.
Yeah.
Wait,
But the thing is, they started winning too, so they really.
But the Mets
kind
are in a big market, so are they allowed to pick in the top 6 regardless?
But they're above the
They're above the luxury tax
threshold, so you got to
so
be in
this is-
between these two
okay.
things.
So if you're a large market but you're below that floor, is there? Wait, there is a floor. I thought there wasn't a floor.
There isn't really a floor, but like it's basically if you're in a large market, you got a low payroll, and
Then
your
you
team
do-
stinks,
okay.
you get penalized. I don't know the exact language to it.
I think
There's a
that's
lot of
fair.
language.
I think that people
I think that's fair.
they kind of squeezed this in, at the last minute when they just kind of threw together the CBA because we were all just so pissed off that baseball wasn't back yet.
This is how these always go with no matter
Yeah.
what the league is. CBAs always come together at the last possible
And
second.
we were just thrilled to have baseball back, so we were like, well, we don't care, just play ball. Like, we'll worry about that later. Well, now it's later, so there you go.
I mean, I just think this totally benefits the Orioles who were mired in eternal suckitude.
Got out of it just in time.
And got out of it just in time. They
Very fortunate.
right.
I'm assuming Baltimore is considered a large market, and so if you're below
No.
that's not.
No, but the point is that the Orioles were consistently in position to get number 1 pick, number 2 pick, stuff like that. You don't want to be part of a lottery, even if
Yeah.
No.
it doesn't penalize you. It's still a crapshoot whether or not you get the good picks.
Right.
Right, like the Nats had the worst record in baseball last year, and they didn't get the top pick.
So is this going to work similar to the NBA where like the worst teams have a higher chance of getting higher picks.
Sure.
But
Yes.
anybody who doesn't make the playoffs could theoretically get the number 1 pick.
I don't think the middle 10 teams or the middle 8 teams, I guess, I don't know. I think only the top 10 team or the bottom 10
Okay.
teams, I should say,
Could get the number
are
1
actually
pick.
in the lottery mix. But
Got it. Okay.
don't quote me on that because, again, I have not read the CBA or any real articles about this because, frankly, it's just the MLB draft is probably the least interesting draft of the major
Probably.
drafts. But,
The only one that might be less interesting would be hockey.
because I don't know who any of those guys are. They're not even from here. Corey's eyeballing something.
I saw a mouse out there.
A mouse.
Oh, nice.
Oh, as quiet as a mouse. That's
Pretty good.
Let Ed know about that.
Yeah, probably need to take care of that.
So yeah, I mean, well, the division leader situation. I mean, the AL East is up for grabs. AL Central does Cleveland have a chance? I don't think so, but
I have no idea.
I mean,
Like, that division stinks.
Okay.
Right? Like I feel like the Twins are going to win it by default, and
Right, but
they're not
that's-
going to win any of their playoff games because they haven't won any playoff games since 2004.
but because everybody in that division stinks, I'm also not going to count Cleveland out of having a chance to get it. I mean, they're 4.5
Sure.
games back, which is quite a bit, but we've seen bigger collapses and bigger comebacks in the playoffs. And if there was a division that was ripe for that, it would be the Central. Like, it's always the Central. It was the National League Central with the Cardinals and was it the Cubs?
sure.
Who had that like catastrophic collapse where like they led by 3 games with 4 games to go and they lost their division lead?
Oh, that was the.
Wasn't it the Cubs?
I mean,
Not
the
that
Cubs
Cardinals
probably
caught
did it.
them,
The
or
Cubs
something?
probably did that at some point in
Yeah.
their sordid history. But
Didn't they do that? Didn't something like that happen in 1969?
Well, it also happened like
I wasn't around, so
yeah. I'm thinking like in the last 10 years that this happened.
Well, I remember the Giants caught somebody where they swept them the last series.
I remember
of
that
the year.
too.
But
The
yeah,
A's did it to the Rangers in 2012.
yeah. Anyway, we are way off track.
Of course we are. I mean, where is the track anyway? Right?
We ain't got it.
People are saying, "Oh, look out for Detroit. They're playing better baseball." Like, no,
They're
that's
not good, but they're
No.
not as horrible. Trying to say horrific and horrible at the same time, and that's what you get. Corey's got the giggle fits. My point is
Why
that
did we spell that in the titles. Exactly.
I'll let Corey use his discretion, but they're not bad enough for the Yankees to figure they're just going to roll over them because, frankly, their records are kind of a little similar.
The Yankees are half a game ahead of Cleveland.
Yeah, and compared to Detroit, they're probably maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so 4 ahead.
there you
of
go.
Detroit.
Like that doesn't mean anything.
3 ahead.
Especially with the Yankees, the way the Yankees are playing, they could easily lose those games too.
Oh yeah. The AL West has gotten interesting. The Rangers had a big lead, and now they don't anymore. So as we speak right now, they lead the Astros by half a game.
Yeah.
And the Mariners by 1.5
And then
games.
look at the Mariners.
The Mariners
of
sold
all
at the
people.
deadline and then decided to get good.
Yeah.
It's like a major league storyline, like the movie, not this actual league. Like you're just
I need a reminder of our playoff picks at some point from Evan because I feel like I had the Mariners in there again
Any
this
idea
year.
where that was?
I don't remember if I picked the
And I
Mariners
think
this
you
year.
guys were giving me
No,
grief
that
for
was-
it
that
again.
was
I know
last-
you
that
guys
was
gave me
definitely
grief
last
I
year.
didn't give you grief.
I
This
know you
year.
gave me grief last year.
might not have
I
picked
feel like
them.
I got some grief this year too.
Well, this is ridiculous. Like they were so bad, and then they traded a bunch of good players because they're like, yeah, we're selling.
And now they're 15 games above 500.
What's going on? Hey, but still can't beat the Orioles, much to their chagrin. So
I mean, they outscored the Orioles.
that doesn't mean they beat them more often than they lost.
Yeah. And then the Angels are 10 games behind the Mariners.
5 games below 500.
5 under 500. Yeah. Like
Your
they're-
your
bought
boy
at the
Shohei
deadline
left
and
with
then
an
got
injury
worse.
today.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What happened? Is it the blister again?
I don't know, but it didn't look good. All I know is that Evan and I are in a race to the bottom in our playoff game because Shohei leaves after only getting 4 guys out, and I'm
Oh
like,
my
that's a
God.
huge break for me. And then my 2 starters both have bad games, and I'm like, well, so I don't actually pick up any ground, so I'm just kind of, it's like 2 slugs, just
I
kinda,
mean, it's the playoffs, right? It can be a pillow fight sometimes.
it feels like a little bit of a pillow fight right now,
Yeah.
but I'm scared.
Yeah. So the Angels stink, like we knew, but they added all these people at the deadline, and
I didn't say it was a good idea. I said they were going to do it, and
Yeah.
they did, and it was a terrible idea.
Yeah,
So.
it's a fully expected disaster. The Braves have clinched a non-losing season. They have 81 wins already.
That's a lot of wins.
Yeah, they're 81 and 44. NL East is over. The Dodgers, allow me to say, I believe I had that.
Yes, you
on
did.
The Dodgers.
Took off, man.
Yeah, the Dodgers are in fuego, I guess you could say. I mean, they're 11 and a half up on San Francisco and Arizona. This thing is over. And y'all's Padres, 17 games back.
That's inexcusable.
Yeah, they've been a colossal disappointment. To just put it out there, right? So, I mean, what's going to happen in this NL Central, and does it matter? I feel like the Brewers are kind of taking off a little bit.
Everybody's kind of had their ups and downs, right? Like, remember the Reds were red hot. The
Yes.
Pirates were like the talk of baseball, along with the Orioles back in April, and
Then they played the Orioles, and the
they
Orioles
lost.
shut them down.
Yeah, and then the Reds, when Ellie De La Cruz came up, it was, the Reds, look at them, and they've kind of fallen back to earth. And then the Cubs were like, they were talking about trading Cody Bellinger at the trade deadline, but they're like, damn, we're right in the mix, and then they were hot. But the Brewers feel like they've been the team that's kind of, if not at the top, near the top the whole time. So I feel like I gotta roll with that.
Yeah,
Right? Like, I don't think they're that good, but they're consistent.
Yeah. Oh, I just flipped over the NL wild card, and it has gotten crazy. So the Phillies are 3 games up of the cut line. The Cubs are in second place, a half game up. But then there's a 3-way tie for the last spot
Oh, wow.
between Arizona, Cincinnati, and San Francisco.
I'm amazed Arizona, have they found level ground? Because they were losing all the games for a while.
Well, they were winning all the games for a while.
Yeah, and then they've lost 8, 9 in a row, something like that.
They
Just completely fell out of it. I was like, well, they're toast. And then next thing I know, it's like, hey, they're actually still in the mix. They haven't completely bottomed out.
Yeah, they're hanging around. The Marlins are a game and a half back.
They've kind of lost a little steam, though.
Yeah, they have.
They were at the top of the wild card, about a month ago.
Mm-hmm. And then, I guess the Padres deserve mention.
They're
for
nominally, and that's all you could say is nominally still in the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Like I said, they need to get to 500 before I start taking them seriously, too.
right. So, and remember, there's no tiebreaker games, right? So, the head-to-head record is the tiebreaker now.
Yep.
So, any Arizona and San Francisco matchups the rest of the way have a lot of intrigue to them.
Yep.
And the American League wild card is, it's really 4 teams for 3 spots. Tampa Bay, Houston, Seattle,
Boston
Toronto.
in a similar way to the Padres are nominally in the mix, but they're 4.5 out.
Yeah, and then there's a big drop to the next teams. 10 out. Yankees, Angels. They can kind of forget it. Unless I'm missing something, unless Dean Kramer gave up 17 runs like he is
Orioles
wont to do.
Currently up 2-0.
Yeah. Tony Taters with a tater tonight.
Yeah.
Yankees are still up 6-0.
Oh, okay. We'll see. The Yankees' bullpen's been terrible, too.
So let me ask you, as our resident pessimist, are the Orioles winning this division?
I'm having doubts just because, they lost last night. Right?
Even if they had won last night, you'd still be having doubts.
Oh, well, certainly, because
One
Tampa Bay's
game-
really good.
One game being what gives Evan
but-
doubts
yes,
just proves your point that he is our resident pessimist.
Yeah, because, when they lose a game, I'm like, well, we're going to lose
That's
the rest
it.
of the games.
You're
We're
done.
done. Everybody's getting
Evan's
fired.
Evan's saying before we even lost the game to the Astros, the debacle with the grand slam, everyone's like, feels like the beginning of the end. I'm
Yes.
like, we just swept the Mets. Like, what are we talking about here? But I think the Orioles are going to win the division. Tampa Bay, still a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
Ace pitcher, done.
Yes.
Best player, done. Never to be heard from again. Hopefully, will spend the rest of his days in a prison cell.
Yeah.
So
And they're losing tonight to the Rockies.
they were losing last night too, and the Rockies blew it. So I'm not counting on them to actually hold the lead. They were down to the Rockies, and then they won 12-4 because they dumped 9 or 10 runs on them in one inning. I'm like,
They scored 9 runs in the 8th inning.
yeah, it was ridiculous. I was like, oh, sweet, the Rockies might win it. They're up 4-3, and then suddenly I'm like, oh no, never mind, that didn't happen. But I'm not exactly an optimistic Homer fan, but I think the Orioles are going to win the division. I think that Tampa's schedule to finish is tougher. I think that their best chance to get to the Orioles is going to be that 4-game series when they come to Oriole Park. And
3 weeks.
And unlike in prior years, they haven't just beaten the crap out of the Orioles. I mean, even if the Orioles work a split in that series, that's a huge win for them because they lock up the season series and they don't allow Tampa to gain any ground on them. That's all they need. Tampa needs to come into Oriole Park and win at least 3, but if they want the tiebreaker, they got to sweep.
Yeah.
So that's the Orioles are definitely in the better position.
I mean, that's true. But I didn't know the Tampa Bay schedule's that hard. Like, the only good teams on here, Seattle, Minnesota, Toronto.
Sure, but Boston's
Baltimore.
not bad.
Yeah.
And the Orioles and Cleveland's in the mix, and Minnesota's not terrible. Like they don't have easy wins though either.
They don't have the A's.
Like the Orioles still have they get the White Sox, right? Like
Oh, yeah, the
and they
White
got the
Sox.
Rockies for 3. Like they've got some opportunities now. Now having said that, the Orioles are going to find a way to get swept by those teams, and I'm going to look like
At
an
home.
idiot. But but the point is the schedule favors the Orioles. The Orioles are obviously ahead in the standings. So I like our chances. I just do.
Okay. I mean, really all you can ask for as a fan is that your team be in the mix.
And honestly, if we don't win the division, we're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's pretty darn good.
That's gravy. I expected, the team to be competitive next year. And I expected them to have the season they had last year, this year.
Yeah, I kind of
And I
expect the
thought-
same thing. Yeah.
I thought 2022 was destined for another 100 losses. Got to get an update on when the Orioles are going to hit loss number 10,000 all time. The first American League team to achieve such a...
Well, can we
Steve
just not count the St. Louis Browns days? Can we just ignore those? Because,
I mean,
didn't happen here.
okay. But I mean...
So, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Oh,
The city of Baltimore does not own all 10,000 of those losses.
that's true. The Orioles don't have a banner for the 1944 American League Championship that the Browns
then
won.
why are we concerned about the losses then? Dump those on the Cardinals.
Yeah,
They
on
can
the
take 'em.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
They existed too.
Doesn't matter. It's their city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we're rambling. I guess more than usual. Anything else y'all want to add before we get to shout-outs?
I'm good with just going to shout-outs.
All right. Well, I want to shout out at Katie's Coasters and at Coaster Dolphin on Instagram.
Others. Yeah.
Yeah, among others. Nice hanging out with y'all down at Carowinds on Saturday. Had a great time. Fury's running great. The crack has been sealed and replaced. So go down to Carowinds because the line was really short for a Saturday. Y'all need to go down there and ride that thing.
Well, I got rides on it before it broke, so I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad you had a good Saturday. I also had a good Saturday because I was at just all over the place. I'm Corey today. Shouldn't have had that Chipotle. It's messing me up.
That's Chipotle.
Yeah. So anyway, my first shout out is a shout out to my cousins down at Cobb Island for hosting us for a great weekend or a great Saturday in the pool and having a good old time there. Shout out to DC 101. Shout out to The Offspring. Shout out to Sum 41. Shout out to Simple Plan for putting on a great show for DC 101 summer camp down there at Jiffy Lube Live Saturday evening.
It was a simple plan.
Yes, they did the Scooby-Doo song for What's New Scooby-Doo as a thing.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't
they
know that.
performed that song at the event. It was awesome.
Oh,
So anyway, they put on a great show. Everybody had a good time. It was a lot of fun. I got another shout out. Shout out to Corey. You mentioned this earlier in the chat. The Alhambra Catholic Invitational Tournament, which is being, I think they said, an indefinite hiatus for so not going to be put on presumably this coming basketball season.
And possibly for the foreseeable future.
For those who are aware, this is a huge, prestigious postseason basketball tournament. DeMatha was regularly featured and has the record for most tournament wins with 27 in their history. But usually the WCAC champion participates. Other WCAC schools that performed well are invited as well. Baltimore area Catholic schools participate as well. It's a really high-level tournament. And it was a lot of fun to go out there to attend, even though it's a little bit of a voyage. It's out there in Cumberland, but
Cumberland, Maryland.
yeah,
Yeah,
we've
it
driven
was held in
further, so
Cumberland.
But it's sad. It's sad to see it go. It was always kind of an exciting part of the season because DeMatha was usually involved, and even in years they didn't win the WCAC or the city title or whatever,
They had
would
something else to play for.
and they would get invited, and they usually win even without winning the league title.
Was they
They'd
beat
go-
Calvert Hall and Mount St. Joe? Just
Calvert Hall probably didn't
I don't know if
get
they would be
very
invited,
often,
yeah.
and I don't
Okay.
know how
It's
good
like, I
Mount St.
can't stand
Joe's
up.
basketball team is either.
They would usually smoke WCAC teams that got invited up there, like
including the ones who performed better than them in the conference
league play, yeah.
tournament. So yeah,
So yeah, it's a shame that they're I guess they're lacking funding to put on the tournament.
I think it is a combination of a lack of funds and also the way that youth basketball is running these days with the club circuit and everything. I guess maybe they felt like they weren't. Some of the high level teams that they were inviting may not have been either accepting the invitation, or maybe a lot of their players were not actually coming up and playing that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, hopefully they can figure something out to get that tournament back up and running at some point.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that's not really in the plans anytime soon. So, thanks for the memories, and I know my dad knew about the Alhambra basketball tournament when he was a Carroll student and was aware of how prestigious it was. That was back in the 70s. So it's been going for a long time, and it's a
Carroll
shame
used to
see
be
it.
big time back in the day.
Yeah, they were a good basketball program.
And a good football program.
Oh, an excellent football program.
Yeah.
All I know about Carroll is that when Shaper would do his cross-country meet breakdowns instead of teaching geology, he always had Pufferson in first. But then, in the team standings,
Because he knew it was going to be either me or Rob Patterson, but
No.
he wasn't sure which one would win that race.
Yeah,
So he picked
Pufferson.
Pufferson.
yeah, 1, 2, mushed together Pufferson. Yeah, but in the team standings, so he was always like, and we can thank Carroll for showing up, because they were always dead last.
Yeah, that's current Carroll. That's not Carroll from back in the day.
Yeah, Carroll
I mean, that's
back
not
then.
current either.
All right, I got one more.
Sorry.
This one's going to piss you off, and that's why I left it for last.
Oh.
Shout out to Gunnar Henderson for bypassing the cycle. Corey's got chills. He had a home run, a triple, and a double, and then came to the plate in, I believe, the 8th inning, and ripped a shot down the line, and opted to run to second, like a smart, normal human being baseball player would do, and took a double instead of settling for a single and getting the cycle.
And you know who's going to remember that he had 2 doubles, a triple, and a home run in 2 years? Nobody.
You know who's going to remember it? When he wins Rookie of the Year, because he's got better stats than the next guy. So,
If the difference between him and the next guy would be a double over a single, then
nobody
what are we
remembers
even
the
talking
cycle
about here?
either. The cycle, like a gajillion people
we
have done
actually
that.
have stats of like how many people have completed a cycle, who has completed a cycle,
And
like,
fewer have done what he did. That's a thing. Like only like 44
but nobody
people.
tracks it. Wait,
Nobody
people
tracks it.
Yes, like
People
someone.
tracks that?
Yes, you got
Have
stats
you watched
for everything,
baseball?
man.
There's
It's
statistics, man.
It's the whole game, man. Like they got
All
stuff
right,
from the
I stand
friggin'
corrected.
19th century.
I was under the impression nobody actually tracks it if it's not a cycle.
I mean, nobody keeps it at the front of their mind, but somebody went and like, let's check this out. How often does this happen? It's like 44. It's a lot less than a cycle, which is in like the 300s. Like, a cycle happens like a handful of times every season. It's not that big of a deal. This is better than a cycle.
It is better than
It's a better performance.
technically.
more total
Yeah,
bases.
technically correct. The best kind of correct. So anyway, do your
what
shout
we're
out.
talking about.
Shout out to my parents. Rashawn and I went out there this weekend. They got crabs, so we just sat.
Sounds like a tough weekend.
It was a great weekend.
Making a joke.
Phrasing.
I know. No, we they got some hard shell crabs. We just chow down for the afternoon. It's always a fun time. You get a chance.
Did you guys cook them, or did they?
They were already
Okay.
cooked.
All
Old Bay seasoning and all that good stuff.
Perfect.
Oh yeah. So we just sat around the table, talked while we stuffed our faces and broke up with some crabs. So that was awesome. Shout out to all of my colleagues. We just got through 3 days of faculty meetings, and tomorrow we welcome the freshmen to campus for the first time. We'll have 2 days of freshman experience. We'll have some transfer students on campus on Friday, upper class orientation on Monday, and then we hit the ground running on Tuesday. So,
I thought you didn't hit the ground running to avoid overwhelming the kids. You said this last year.
we hit whatever. It's a figure of speech.
I don't. Evan feels so put upon for his days at DeMatha. Seems these kids today, they get a break.
They do get a break.
Despite
What's going on?
Despite the fact that they had to navigate COVID as high school students, when we're just sitting around playing COD or milling around doing podcasts, these guys have to try to do high school through all that. Oh, kids these days have it so easy. That's you.
Oh, okay.
It is. You,
Get off
Evan.
my lawn.
It's usually me, right?
All right. Well,
Anyway, let's get out of here. I'm hungry. We did our shout-outs. There hasn't been any late-breaking news. And again, I'm hungry. So, for Corey and Eric, this is Evan. This has been the Sports Ballers Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. And our one viewer on YouTube, which I think is us.
No, that's Alex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Alex
We
says-
usually get more listens on Spotify and Apple anyway.
Okay.
We're in the 50s every week now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what?
tens and tens of views.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we're actually in the 50s every week now.
It is.
Dozens
We
instead of
finally
the-
got like reliable analytics, and so like yeah,
Oh, wow.
we're doing all right.
Apparently, Colton Cowser hit a dinger. Or made a great play. I don't know. I can't tell. It's not loading.
Nobody listens to the end of the show though, so nobody's hearing this part.
That's true. They really don't. Like,
It drops off completely in the last 2 minutes of every episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, completely, 100%.
That's why you got to do shout outs before the spiel.
We go from like 80% of people like make it through the first 10 minutes to like 60% make it to like the last 2 minutes, and then after that it's 0%.
Alrighty. Well, in the if there's some sort of miracle and you're out there listening to this, thank you so much. And
Being the one.
yeah. And go ahead and hit the button. We'll talk to you next week.